What's up, guys? This is Xander Bennett from the Rare Candy here, and today we are doing this week's episode of Rare Candy Roundup. Sorry that we didn't get this up last week. We had some really huge technical difficulties on our end that prevented us from getting this up, but now is the time for us to come back on 2 weeks of information, so I'm pretty excited because we got some awesome stuff coming up, some really cool stuff implemented and revealed within these past 2 weeks. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Alright, if you missed out on Portland Regionals, you can still find the stream at twitch.tv/tnunsky. It was a stream by Travis Nunlist along with Alex Koch and Brandon Wynn, with the winning deck of the tournament being this kind of breakout Seismitoad Zoroark deck that looks very cool. I don't think this deck is going to stay alive for too much longer because of a card, Faba, that we have seen in Lost Thunder, but before that card is legal, this deck looks super awesome and really cool just to kind of look at from an outside perspective. Seems very not fun to play against, but the deck relies around Seismitoad EX with its Quaking Punch attack, just doing 30 and then stopping them from items, along with Zoroark GX to just discard a card and then trade and draw your 2, and you just keep doing that over and over again. This deck is not a Skyfield deck. It doesn't even play a Skyfield in the list and is not really trying to attack with Zoroark. The deck relies around 2 copies of Lusamine, getting back a numerous variety of one-of supporters, along with 2 Plumeria that you can choose from. So you can discard basically all of your opponent's energies while Quaking Punching them and just keeping the loop going. The deck plays 3 Enhanced Hammer as the only item way to discard energies, but between Quaking Punch, that's probably enough. Zoroark decks are only really playing 4 double colorless energy, and if they're playing Special Charge, they can't really get it back. Buzzwole Lycanroc can't play their Beast Rings or their Max Elixirs while they're under Quaking Punch. Trevenant gets hit by the Zoroark GXs. So this deck has some pretty strong matchups overall, and this deck plays a really long game, and one of the cool innovations that they played are the fossil Pokemon that came out of Plasma Blast, being Lileep, Archon, and Tortuga, and they all have this ability called Prehistoric Call, and it says once during your turn before you attack, if this Pokemon is in your discard pile, you may put this Pokemon on the bottom of your deck. So their thought is that you deck yourself out, and you give yourself access to your whole deck because of Lusamine and the ability to get back whatever supporter you need, and you put this card at the bottom card of your deck, which essentially is the top card, and then you draw it, you trade it away because of the do as much as you can rule, so you discard the card and you just can't draw the 2 cards, and then you use the ability to put it back into your deck. The running joke right now is which one of these do you play? Tortuga was the one in the winning list, but they all do the same thing. But this deck just has a ton of options and ways to outplay your opponent, and I think it's really interesting. Gives a lot of the same premises that decks like Sylveon or Sableye Garbodor have, where you abuse the fact that Expanded is such a powerful yet volatile format that you can break up pretty easily if you have the right set of cards, and these guys nailed it. There were 6 of them that were played at this regional, or 6 out of 7 people that played this exact list made day 2, of which 4 of them made top 16, and all of them made top 32, that being Jimmy Pendarvis at 1st, Joey Rudiger at 5th, Azul Griego at 10th, Michael Pramawat at 16th, Caleb Gedimer at 20th, and Ahmed Akras at 28th. So deck is super solid overall, and definitely something to check out if you have some expanded format tournaments coming up. Outside of that, this was the first tournament that did not have the 4 cards that were banned most recently out of the expanded format, which were Ghetsis, Hexmaniac, Wally, and Puzzle of Time. But Trevenant still managed to get 2nd at this tournament, and I think that is not surprising at all. I remember a lot of people saying that this was the death of Trevenant, and that is absolutely not true, because Trevenant still won plenty of games where your opponent went first, and you were just able to item lock them out of the game. And Wally was a card that a handful of people were cutting anyway, and that makes a lot of sense to me because it wasn't always a helpful card in the times that you needed it. The innovations in this deck were a Marshadow from Shining Legends, just as a Psychic Pokemon you can get off a Mysterious Treasure to disrupt their hand in combination with an Ascension, as well as Scoop Up Cyclone as the A-Spec over a card like Computer Search, because since you're not trying to get a Wally combination off, you don't need that effect to search your deck for any card. So the deck looks really strong overall. Outside of that, we've kind of seen some usual contenders. Archiestoise made top 4 and bubbled at 9th. Primal Groudon was a deck that has seen random varieties of expanded play. made top 4 as well. And then there's also a Buzzwole, a Drampa Garbodor, another Zoroark controlling deck by Isaiah Williams, very similar to what they played at Worlds with Articuno GX, and then the second copy of the Seismitoad Zoroark deck overall. If you are interested in checking out the results for this tournament, you will find a link in the description that has all of the lists from the tournament. And Expanded is so huge, there's such a large variety of decks. So if you're trying to figure out what kind of decks you like, this would probably be a good place to start, just because there's so many random different things going on in this format. The coolest of which, in my personal opinion, just because it is new, was an Alolan Exeggutor deck that one of them made top 8, or not top 8, one of them made top 16, and the other one made top 32. The deck, they did not play the same list, those two people, but the deck relies on Alolan Exeggutor from Forbidden Light, which has the attack Tropical Shake. It's a Stage 1, 160 HP grass Pokemon, so that's huge, being a non-GX with 160 HP. And then Tropical Shake for 1 grass. It does 20 plus 20 for each type of basic energy in your discard pile, and you can't add more than 100 damage in this way. So 1 grass for 120 works out pretty well, but between Hypnotoxic Laser and Burbank City Gym, cards that we haven't seen in a while, in combination with Battle Compressor and Choice Bands, that damage adds up very quickly to relevant numbers. The list also played once a Viper from the Sun and Moon set that has the ability that makes Poison do 10 more. So you can be doing 190 with this thing in 1 turn, and also with the 1 copy of Kukui added up to 210. So that is just some really crazy math, if I'm doing it right in my head, that you can do with this deck to add up on those big GX Pokemon. Some of the lists also played Shrine of Punishments that I saw. I believe that the other list, instead of playing Hypnotoxic Laser and Burbank City Gym, did. I'm going to look at it just to make sure. Yes, that's correct. So this list, the top 32 list, relied on 3 Shrine of Punishments to help the deck get the math instead of the Hypnotoxic Laser and Burbank City Gym combination, while also just doing big damage to your opponent's Pokemon. So overall, I think that this deck is really exciting. The 2 players that played it are Eden Lewis, who made the top 16 placement, and John O'Donnell making the top 32 placement. So kudos to them, not working on the deck together, but making really cool lists that made it into day 2 of the tournament. But overall, yes, definitely check out these Portland deck lists. They are really creative, and it makes me pretty excited for the expanded format, where previously it had been seen as a little bit stale just because of how some of the dominating decks were winning the game. It wasn't necessarily the most interactive, but I like this expanded right now, and I wouldn't even mind playing it. I'm pretty excited for it. So definitely check this out if that's something you're interested in. Alright, this is the main reason that I feel bad about this video not going out last week. It's because the late registration for Roanoke has now opened up, but Masters can still register for the event at the cost of $55. It is the Saturday and Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, so if your celebrations are done, you should definitely check that out and see if that's something that you're interested in Roanoke, Virginia. And then there are 2 regionals coming up about a month out from now. One of them in UK in the city of Harrogate, and then the other one here in Anaheim. The Harrogate Regional, you can register for £40, and it is standard. And I cannot find any link for Anaheim about registration costs, but it's in the expanded format. Both of these regionals will also have Lost Thunder legal, just like how Roanoke will. So check out all of these events, especially if you're one of our viewers coming from overseas looking to kind of get into some more regionals. There's a great one coming up there. All right, we got some pretty big news coming up. Latin American International Championship will be coming up in Brazil, the dates being November 16th to November 18th. I do not believe that that is within the Lost Thunder legality date, or if it is the weekend it goes legal. So sorry for not knowing that information. I can't find a link for it either because I have no intentions of going. But it's going to be super awesome. Normally they haven't streamed at the international level, so we will be excited to see what comes up with that. The mat and promo card have been revealed, though, and they look super awesome. The promo is a choice band that looks like it is on the head of a Primeape, so that is a really cool card that we won't get to use here because it is in Portuguese. But the playmat has a few different sets of Pokemon. It has a Pikachu and a Zekrom, it has a Mimikyu and a Gengar, and then it has a Magikarp and a Wailord. And if you notice anything between those sets of Pokemon, we've already had the Pikachu and Zekrom GX revealed at Worlds 2018, and we know that we are going to be getting a Mimikyu and Gengar GX coming in Team Up. So it seems to be pretty obvious that we might be getting a Magikarp and Wailord GX coming up in that set too. And that actually makes a lot of sense because the extra spin-off set that they're doing along with their Tag Team GX set is called Towering Splash. So probably going to be getting a Magikarp and Wailord GX. We've seen no written record of it, but this seems like a very obvious sign that there's something going on between those two Pokemon, especially whenever it's teamed up with two sets of Tag Team GX Pokemon that we know that we are already getting. So that's some pretty cool information that we're getting before Japan even sees it. But I'm really excited for that because it just seems hilarious to have a big old Wailord and then a tiny Magikarp paired along with it. That seems to be the theme of these tag teams. It's like one kind of more intimidating Pokemon and then one tiny little cute thing to go along with it. So I kind of really enjoy that balance of something that can be done with those Tag Team GXs. Speaking of the Team Up set, we've seen the Elite Trainer Box released, and it looks super cool. It's got Pikachu and Zekrom on the side of it. We have learned that the set is going to have over 180 cards consisting of 6 new Tag Team GX Pokemon and then 6 more Pokemon and 4 Prism Stars. It's going to be comprised of Dark Order, Tag Bolt, and the cards from GX Ultra Shiny that are not all of the shiny promos that we've seen recently, which I'll get to talk about in a minute, that I'm very excited about. But this set looks like another awesome one for us to do a 6-hour set review on, and I'm very interested to see how these tag teams shake up our metagame. Alright, speaking of GX Ultra Shiny, we have received a ton of cards from that set. We do not know when these cards are going to hit our shoulders, the ones that are the reprints, but there are easily over 20 to 30 of these shiny GX Pokemon that are coming in the set, and then there are numerous full arts, about 10 of them, and a bunch of other random Pokemon that are just printed in their shiny form. So this set just looks super cool. Some of my personal favorites are obviously Sylveon, but the Alolan Ninetales GX from Guardians Rising got a printing. There's a shiny Metagross GX, also from Guardians Rising, that looks really cool. And then shiny Mewtwo just is a really classic shiny Pokemon to see, as well as shiny Charizard. Just so many of them that we've talked about here. If you would like to see all of those all put in one place, we'll have a link for those in the description, as well as these really new cool gold Taboo Pokemon, kind of like how we saw the gold Ultra Necrozma. We got a gold Solgaleo, a gold Lunala, and then the 4 gold Tapu Pokemon. I'm sure that this Tapu Lele, if we ever get it on our shores, is going to be a very expensive card. But these look really cool, and I hope that we get them so badly because I just could not wait to see these in play. They are beautiful cards, definitely some of the best looking cards since I've started playing the game. But let's get right to it. There are some really cool new cards coming out of this set, and a personal favorite of mine is a new supporter card called Ingo and Emmett. So they are the black and white Battle Subway trainers from that game, and it's a supporter card. It says, look at the top card of your deck, and then you put it back. Then you choose one. You either discard your hand and you draw 5 cards from the top of your deck, or discard your hand and draw 5 cards from the bottom of your deck. So this card is really unique, and I can think of a lot of situations that this card is definitely tournament playable. So it kind of feels a little bit like, even though it's just straight draw, which you're totally cool with, having the selection of looking at the top card of your deck is actually really good. If I'm playing Buzzwole and I need to hit a B-String on my B-String turns, I can look at the top card of my deck, and if it's not a B-String, I know that my probability of the 5 cards that I'm drawing having a B-String is decreased by 1 card not being a B-String. So I might just draw the bottom 5 cards of my deck because I can check and see what's going to be in the top. Or if I'm playing a deck with max elixirs, even though it rotated and I don't have a lot of energies left, if I look at the top card of my deck and it's a fighting energy, which I'm just saying fighting because we've talked about Buzzwole, I can just draw the bottom cards of my deck knowing that I'm going to hit an energy because I have so few left in my deck. Drawing 5 cards instead of 7 cards like Sycamore is obviously more fair. Sycamore and Juniper have been ridiculous cards, and I think that this card is just really interesting. Another really, really cool use of this card that I'm very excited to try is with Oranguru using Resource Management. You can discard your hand and draw the bottom 5 cards of your deck, which you can set up to be exactly what you want with 2 turns of Resource Management. So this could work very well in a controlling style deck where you just whittle away at your opponent's resources. And I think it's better than Looker because you do get some more draw overall. The problem with Looker and Oranguru is that you only get 1 new card a turn, which is your draw for turn. So this gives you access to 2 new cards a turn because you can draw 2 more cards that maybe you didn't know on top of what you Lookered back for. Or if you Lookered the previous turn, you can stack them in a way that you have the two most important ones at the bottom so that you can get them back whenever you play Ingo and Emmett. So this is a super cool card that I don't think will see a lot of expanded play. I think it's just definitely worse than Sycamore and Juniper, but I think it's really cool for Standard, just kind of as a slightly different version of the Sightseer card that we have just seen recently. So I'm really excited for this card, just definitely in that Oranguru style strategy that I've mentioned already. All right, continuing on with supporters and then going on to Pokemon. There are 4 new supporters that came out in this set, and they are all pretty interesting. I don't know how good they are overall, but we'll start off with the one that kind of seems to be the star of them all, or the one that's getting the most attention. It's Morgan. It's the green one of these 4 females. It says this card can't be played unless you discard Dana, Evelyn, and Nita from your hand. So these are the other 3 supporters that are in this cycle of 4 cards. So you have to play this card and discard 3 of those other cards. So effectively this is starting off as a -3 plus the card that you're playing. So this effect better be very strong for something that if we're willing to play it. So let's see what it says. It says look at the top 12 cards of your deck, attach as many energy cards as you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like, then shuffle your deck afterward. So at the cost of discarding 4 cards, you get to dig 12 cards deep into your deck and discard and put as many energy that you find there onto your Pokemon. So this could be really good or really bad. People have already talked about that in Expanded, you can use Hoopa to get 3 Jirachi EXs to search your deck for 3 of these supporters, so then you can play the last one and discard it. But that's got to be the only combo that you can probably pull this card off with, just because discarding 3 other cards from your hand, especially 3, you have to have 1 of each of them, makes the card seem like it's just a really huge combo. But looking at the top 12 cards of your deck is huge. If Max Elixir can see play, looking at the top 6 of your cards, there's got to be some way to play this card where you can look at the top 12 cards of your deck. Got to play a lot of energies. Maybe instead of playing Blacephalon Naganadel, we do something crazy with this. I don't even know. The possibilities are really open in terms of what you could be putting your energies on. So I don't know if this is going to end up being that good, but this is a really cool design from Pokemon that we have not seen recently. But let's look into what these other 3 supporters do, because if we're going to be playing the Morgan engine to get a bunch of energies into play, let's look at all of them. So we'll start with Dana. Dana is the red female of these, and it says this card can't be played unless your opponent's active is a stage 2. So starting off, that is not that great. Stage 2s are assumably going to be a little bit bigger in the metagame because of Alolan Ninetales GX from Lost Thunder. So maybe that's a catch, but don't really want to be relying on our opponents evolving their Pokemon. But let's see what it says. It says search your deck for 2 cards and put them into your hand. And that's decent. I don't think any deck can really afford to play this style of card because of just you kind of have to wait for your opponent to get the stage 2 to their active, and then you have to have this card on the turn that they do, and you can't always assume that you're going to be playing against decks with stage 2s in them. So I think this card's kind of a flop, but the effect is really cool. Let's keep going through. Evelyn is the blue female here, and it says you cannot play this unless your opponent's active is a stage 1 Pokemon. Okay, so I'm starting to see a trend here, and it says draw 4 cards. I'm kind of interested in this card. Zoroark and other stage 1s like Lycanroc and Ninetales are a really large part of the metagame, so I feel like this, out of the 3, even though I haven't read the last one yet, is definitely the one that's most likely to see the most play. And just a straight draw 4, that's okay. We still have Lily, we still have Cynthia, so this isn't the card that you're just going to be jamming numerous ones into your deck. I wonder what makes them, like, is the extra card that you're getting off of this worth the disadvantage of your opponent's active having to be a stage 1 Pokemon? Because we've seen Charon, Tierno, How, and then even Looker, even though it draws 3 from the bottom, you can draw 3 cards for free just fine. So is the extra card really worth the clause of your opponent's active being a stage 1? I don't think so. I think even though I'm definitely not playing TV Reporter, or not TV Reporter, if I'm definitely not playing How or Looker in my decks, I'm probably not going to be playing this card either, because even though it gets me another one, it's more circumstantial. So kind of 0 for 2 in terms of what these cards do. And then lastly, there's Nita, and this card is neat. This card, I don't think it's good, but I think it's worth thinking about in a certain way. It says, this card cannot be played unless your opponent's active is a basic, so that's cool. It says, choose an energy attached to your opponent's active. Your opponent puts it on top of their deck. So your opponent's active has to be a basic, and it has to have an energy on it. And you put an energy there on top of their deck. So this is not a Flare Grunt replacement because the point of Flare Grunt is to get rid of all their energies. This does let you time walk your opponent, though. I think that there's probably a universe where you can Nita them into a situation where they're kind of drawing out of cards, but that also requires that they're not drawing out of cards in their deck, but they're not drawing out of their hand, because since you're putting it on top of their deck, they're not getting a fresh draw for turn. But that also requires that they attach to their active every time, and that you're probably doing other stuff to go along with it. So these cards are all really unique, but I think that they're only going to really see play in the Morgan style of deck that wants to be just discarding all of these. I'm glad that they kind of gave you some options depending on what you're facing with this deck. The Dana could even search for more of the Morgan or Evelyn or Nita cards, so that feels pretty synergistic. Evelyn just letting you draw 4 cards gives you more chance to hitting them. So I think that there's definitely some play between all of these, but overall I'm just going to kind of have to downrate them. And I'm sorry this took a while, but there's 4 cards we had to go over for this set of trainers, and each of which all got full arts coming out in this set too. So if you are a full art collector, you got 4 of them that synergize really well together to look at. Alright, so we've seen the Faerie Charms come out of Lost Thunder, but now we have a Faerie Charm UB, and it says this card, the Pokemon this card is attached to doesn't take damage from the attacks of your opponent's Ultra Beasts that are GX and EX Pokemon. So essentially think of this as a fighting replacement for the Faerie Charm fighting in a deck like Sylveon that would be playing these, because where the fighting one would stop Buzzwole GX and Lycanroc GX, this one stops Buzzwole GX and Blacephalon GX. And I feel like that's a strict upgrade. Lycanroc is not a card that you're scared of in that style of deck because it takes a lot of attachments onto it and they can't B-string onto it. So I like this card more than I like those, but I feel like they're still really narrow, and there's part of the game that they're not touching. I don't think that the Fairy decks are going to have room to play ways that you're fine with having this card be bad in a handful of your matchups. Like, for example, if you're playing a Zoroark deck and you're playing a tech for a certain matchup, it can be bad again in every matchup except the one that you're putting it in the deck for, but it's fine because you can just trade it away. The Fairy decks don't really have that kind of draw and consistency right now, so I don't know how useful this card will be. But I think it's still neat, and it's cool that it exists if Ultra Beasts continue to see popularity as they are right now. Alright, we got 2 more memories for Silvally GX. If you remember those cards, we have a Water Memory and a Grass Memory, and both of them turn your Silvally GX into the type of Pokemon that is assigned to the memory. So the Water Memory would make your Silvally GX a Water Pokemon, and the Grass Memory would make your Silvally GX a Grass Pokemon. And I think this is pretty neat. Silvally GX has always been a card that I've enjoyed seeing do well, but recently it's just been a little bit too slow, and I think it's probably going to continue to be too slow. But just having more of these cards means that if it ever does get good, or if they print another Silvally GX, which is also on the table because we're still in the GX era, that these cards could make that style of deck shine. So, not really finding a home for it immediately, but it's definitely something to think about. Alright, I kind of went out of order with these because I tied in straight to the supporter cards, but we've seen 1 Prism Star out of this set that we have not talked about already, and it is Shaman Prism Star. It's an 80 HP Grass Pokemon, and the attack for Grass does 30 times the number of basic energy attached to your Pokemon in play. It's called Flower Storm, and this card seems pretty cool overall. I like it in a deck like Rayquaza, where you're already going to be putting a lot of energies into play, though it feels a little bit like a win harder card, because if you're playing Rayquaza, normally the games you have 6 or 7 energy in play and you're taking big knockouts are the games that you're winning. So putting Grass on here and doing that much damage is still really good, and you're doing it with a 1 prize Pokemon, so that's very solid, but it feels like you'd kind of already be winning this game if you had a Rayquaza. Weak to Fire, no resistance, 0 retreat, all of those are pretty solid and expected overall. I like this card. I don't think that a lot of decks are going to be able to play it. I think Rayquaza is going to be the home for it, and I feel like this might be the kind of card that Rayquaza needs because it might just end up being worse than Blacephalon depending on how this metagame turns out, but we're not entirely sure. But no, I think this card is interesting. It says specifically the number of basic energy you have in play, so I don't know how the interaction would be between your grass energies and a card like Venusaur from Shining Legends, because it checks for basic energies, not how many energies you have in play total. So don't know exactly how the translations will modify one way or the other how this card works. But it seems really interesting and one of the better Prism Stars we've seen as of late. Alright, so that looks like all of the information from Rare Candy Roundup. So make sure to check out our Patreon. We got a bunch of awesome stuff up there. Our viewers have been suggesting decks for us to do and just some other really cool stuff that they like seeing on the channel. So if you are interested in being a part of this growing channel, check out our Patreon. We got a ton of awesome benefits, and the link for that will also be in the description. But for now, thank you for listening to this week's Rare Candy Roundup. This is Xander Bennett signing out.